Hi, and welcome to the Adaptive Technology for Reading and Writing workshop. If you're not familiar with what adaptive technology is hardware or software that creates an equal access to online and physical environments. These tools can help you be more productive, more independent, or participate more. If you have any questions about adaptive technology or need help troubleshooting adaptive technology, please visit us during our adaptive technology drop-in hours. And if those times don't work for you, we can schedule an appointment, or you can email us at adaptivetech@pdx.edu. Today we're going to talk about three main reading tools, and then we'll finish up by briefly discussing two writing tools that may be helpful to you as a student, even if you are participating in remote learning or online learning. Some of these tools are free to you as a student registered with the DRC, while others would need to be purchased on your own, and I'll explain which are which once we get to them. So I wanted to start out first by showing you the DRC website and where you can find the adaptive technology page, since this can give you more suggestions on other reading and writing tools or more information about the technology that we talk about today. Okay, so this is the DRC homepage. So to find the adaptive technology webpage, if you go to the top menu and select accommodations, there's a drop-down menu, and from here you can navigate to adaptive technology. I'll select that, and once this loads, on the left, it briefly describes what adaptive technology is, and on the right column, here are different categories of adaptive technology. So there's adaptive technology for note-taking and organization, which we have another workshop for. There's adaptive technology for communication and math. Since we're specifically talking about reading and writing today, I'll go ahead and select that link. And this will take me to the reading and writing web page. On the left-hand side, there's a column that gives suggestions and options for adaptive technology for reading, while on the right side, there are suggestions for writing. In general, with adaptive technology, there's a large range of different kinds of technology. On one end, there is free open sourced technology that maybe doesn't have a lot of features or might have some glitches, where on the other end of that range are more expensive tools that have tons and tons of features, and they're kind of the gold standard of adaptive technology. So we'll talk about a few different things along that range in our workshop today. So first, for our reading tools, we will start out with talking about Natural Reader, which is right here. Natural Reader does have a free option. After we're done talking about Natural Reader, I'll introduce Voice Dream Reader. And then we'll spend a large chunk of our workshop talking about Kurzweil 3000, which has reading and also writing software and tools that you can use. And then we'll finish up the workshop by briefly talking about Google Voice Typing. Okay, so we'll start out first by showing you Natural Reader, which is, I'll show you on an iPad. To navigate to Natural Reader, you can select the Natural Reader icon to open up the application. And right now I have a book from Alice in Wonderland that I will demonstrate for you today. So as you can see, there is highlighting on the page right now. So to start having Natural Reader read to you, you can tap anywhere where there's text. So I'll go ahead and tap at where this next paragraph starts, and it will start reading.
What is the use of a book? Thought Alice without pictures or conversations, so she was considering in her own mind as well as she could.
So
For the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid.
So to pause, I selected here at the bottom right, there is a play button as well as a pause button that you can use. There's also, so you'll notice that it highlights in yellow as it reads, and it does it by phrase more or less. Natural Reader this is the free version of Natural Reader that I'm showing you right now. It does have a paid version as well that has some more options than I'll show you today. Natural Reader also does have a web browser version. So if you wanted to use it on Google Chrome or Firefox, you could open their website and copy and paste text in or upload a document and it will read it out loud to you. Natural Reader, because this is on the lower end of the range that I was explaining about adaptive technology. So because it's free, that also means that it does not have maybe as many features as other text-to-speech tools might. But a really great feature about Natural Reader is it has a focus mode. So here on the bottom where this arrow is, I'll go ahead and select that, and this will open up the focus mode. So here you can see that now it's listing that phrase by phrase, what it was highlighting in yellow. For the options up here at the top, there's a toolbar. If I select the speaker icon, this will then allow me to change the speed, the language, as well as the voice. And in the paid version, they have more voices that you can select from that sound a little more natural. And then if you wanted to change the visual options for the size of the text, you can select the double A icon and then you can make the text smaller or bigger depending on what your preference is. You can also change the background color by selecting the circle icon. So if you wanted to have a black background so that it's easier on your eyes, you can change that. And then here at the bottom is where you have your controls. So here in the middle is a play button, and then they have icons so you can go a phrase ahead or a phrase back. And then here on the bottom is a navigation tool so you can go from page to page. But besides that, the way that you would navigate in the regular mode for Natural Reader is just to scroll with your finger. So that is it for Natural Reader. There really isn't a lot to it, but if you wanted to try it out, you can download the free version, and then if you wanted to have a little bit extra, you could choose to purchase it on your own. Now I'll show you Voice Dream Reader, which is another mobile app that you can use. So I'll go ahead and open that. Voice Dream Reader I have right here, so I'll go ahead and select that to open up this application. And Voice Dream Reader is one that you would need to purchase because they don't have a free version that you can use. But this is along that middle range. So Natural Reader was on the lower end, Voice Dream Reader is in the middle, and then when we talk about Kurzweil, that's on the far end of being the gold standard of text-to-speech technology. So Voice Dream Reader has note-taking capabilities and the voices sound a little bit more natural. So this is a really great option for a lot of students who want to have something available on a mobile device and an application that will read their text out loud to them. Similar to Natural Reader, Voice Dream Reader can only read accessible documents, but Voice Dream Reader does have a separate app that you can purchase that is called Voice Dream Scanner that allows you to scan documents, and then it has technology that can convert that document from an inaccessible picture into an accessible document that Voice Dream Reader can then use and read. So first I'll show you the navigation tools that are here at the bottom. So just to scroll from page to page, you can use your finger to scroll. And then here at the bottom, you have your play button, and then these two buttons jump about 30 seconds ahead or behind within the reading. At the bottom here, there is this range. So right now, if I were to start the reading, it's about 40 minutes into the reading, and I would have about 3 hours left. So in total, the reading is about 3 hours and 40 minutes for this whole psychology text, for this textbook chapter. There's also this percentage that shows you about how far along you are in the reading. So this can be a helpful tool. To start reading, I'll go ahead and zoom in so we can see the text a little bit better here. So to start reading, at any point in the document, you can double tap on a word and it will start reading. There's also, of course, the play button that you can select as well. So I'll go ahead and double tap at the word because.
Because of confirmation bias, our preconceptions often lead lead us to focus on evidence that bolsters our beliefs, resulting in psychological tunnel vision.
All right, so I went ahead and paused it by selecting the pause button there at the bottom. This is hard to see on the camera, but as it is reading, it has this box that appears around the word as it reads each word. And then this is hard to see on the camera, but there is this yellow highlighting, and that yellow highlighting appears across the whole line of text. So you can change that within the preferences if you do not want that box to appear or do not want the highlighting to appear. You can change that if you want. For note taking, if you wanted, I'll go ahead and scroll or zoom back in here. The note taking options are available if you tap and hold. So let's say, for example, I wanted to take a note specifically on this word number. I'll go ahead and tap and hold, and then all the different note-taking features appear for me. So of course I can copy or look this up if I wanted to with Define. I can also highlight or make a note or a bookmark. So if I wanted to make a note, I'll select note, and then I can write this is a note, and I'll save that. And then it highlights it, and then there is this tiny little yellow box that appears next to it to give me an idea that I wrote a note there. You can also access your highlights and notes by going to this bullet point icon here on the lower left, and then you can see your bookmarks, and then your highlights and notes also appear in this section as well. If you wanted to change some of the reading features, you can go to this double switch icon on the top right. And then from here, there's a reading mode. So usually we recommend that you have it stop at the end of the document, but you can have it stop at the end of each sentence, and then you would have to start it again so it will keep reading for you. You can also have it keep going to the next document. So if you had several textbook chapters queued up, you can have it continue reading without it stopping at the end of the document. There's also a timer feature. So if you only wanted to read for a set amount of time, you can set up the timer. And so there's set times, and then here at the bottom, you can input any value for a set amount of minutes. And then after it's done reading for that amount of time, it will then stop the reading. To control some of the visual and audio features of VoiceStream Reader, there are your options up here at the top right of the window. I'll select the antenna icon first. So then it pops up with this audio settings window. From here, I can control the speed. So I can make it faster or slower. I can change the language or the voice. And there's also advanced audio options that you can look at as well. I'll now go ahead and select the double A icon, which brings up a visual settings window. And from here, there's not a lot that you can do within the original layout, but it has this really neat option, which is the plain text. So I'll go ahead and select that. And what it does is it gets rid of all of the extra images or visual aspects that there are within a textbook, and it gives you just plain text. And then from within here, you can change the font and spacing. So right now I have it set to a font that is particularly good for people who have dyslexia. But if I wanted to change this to Arial, I can change that. And then you can make it bold or regular. You can also change the text size and character spacing or anything else that would be great for you. You can also change the color of the document. So if I select dark, it will change it so that the background is black and the text is white, which is particularly good for eye strain. It can help reduce eye strain for you. Okay, so now I'm going to navigate back to the original layout. And that is the basics of VoiceStream Reader, but this is a really great option if you're looking for something that is robust enough to use for your classes and has a good text-to-speech voice that sounds a little bit more natural. Now I'll go ahead and introduce Kurzweil, which is one of our most popular softwares that we use with students. Kurzweil is a reading, writing, and studying platform that can convert inaccessible documents into accessible documents that can then be read out loud to you within Kurzweil. Kurzweil also has some writing features, including the brainstorm feature that we'll talk about today, that helps as part of the writing process. If you have the eText accommodation through the DRC, you are eligible for a free license of Kurzweil while you're at PSU. And if you aren't sure if you have the eText accommodation or if you would like to have that accommodation, please contact your access counselor. So there are 3 different ways that you can access Kurzweil. The first way is through your web browser. So you can go to kurzweil3000.com and log in there. You can also access it through a Google Chrome extension. So then that specifically works for reading web pages out loud to you. And the third way is through the software version that you download onto your computer. Today, I'll specifically demonstrate the Windows version of the software and show you what that looks like and all the different features within it. It is important just to be aware that Kurzweil does take a while to download. It takes more or less about an hour, so you'll want to plan for that. And then once it is downloaded on your computer, you will need to have access to the internet, whether it's by Wi-Fi, hotspot, or data. But you'll want to make sure that you have access so that you can log in and access all the features within Kurzweil. So now I'll go ahead and show you what Kurzweil for Windows looks like. So here is the home screen for Kurzweil. On here, the first thing you'll want to look at is the open existing file area. If you select this open folder icon, there are 3 different ways that you can open a document within Kurzweil. The first option is to open from your local computer. So you would just navigate within your files and then select whatever document you would like to open. There is also the Universal Library, which is Kurzweil's online storage system for Kurzweil readings. This is particularly helpful if you need to access your Kurzweil readings from another device so that you can then save it to the cloud, or you can also free up space on your computer by just saving directly to the Universal Library. The last option is to open from Google Drive, which is particularly helpful if you are an eText student who receives a PDF version of your textbooks or readings through the adaptive or through the alternative formats team, since they upload those files into a Google Drive folder. So you can access that directly from Kurzweil as well. I'm going to open a psychology textbook chapter today that I'll show you. So I'll go ahead and navigate here and I'll choose my psychology chapter and I'll open that. Once I select open, then there is a recognition page range window that appears. So I'll have to select what pages I would like to convert. So for Kurzweil, it does take it a little bit to convert each and every page since it has optical character recognition software. So it just takes it a minute to convert every single page so that it is then readable. So this document is 46 pages long, so it's a little bit on the longer side. So it would take a while if I wanted to convert all of those pages. But for the purposes of our workshop, I am going to input that I want it to start from page 4, and then I'll input the value for 2 is page 7. So it'll upload 4 pages in total. And now I'll select OK. At this point, Kurzweil is going to start converting the document for me into a readable version that Kurzweil can then read out loud. On the bottom right, there is a progress bar that lets me know what page it's at in the process, and the progress bar lets me know how far along it is there. So it'll take it just a minute here to finish. And then once that progress bar disappears, it means that Kurzweil has finished uploading this into a Kurzweil version. So it then leaves you on the last page. So once everything is done, the first thing you'll want to do is save. So you can navigate to the save icon here on the top left. And then you'll want to save this either to your computer, to the Universal Library, or to Google Drive. The reason being that if you do not save this and then you need to come back to the document, you'll have to wait for Kurzweil to convert that whole document again, which can take a few minutes or more depending on how long the document is. To navigate from page to page within Kurzweil, you can use these forward and backward arrows. So I can go back to the first page by using this back arrow. The other option is to type in a number here into the page value. If for some textbooks, the number that you have down here on the bottom may not match up with the number that Kurzweil has up here on the top. If you wanted to change that value, you can. Especially this could be helpful if you are navigating based on page number for readings that you've been assigned. So to change that, you'll first go under View in the top toolbar. Then you'll go to Page, and then Set Number. And then from here, you can change the number of the first page of the document to whatever page you want. So let's say, for example, I actually wanted this page 4 to be page 1 within Kurzweil. So now it's updated to say that this is page 1 of 4 instead of page 4 of 7. There are also various visual aspects that you can change on Kurzweil as well. To zoom in and out, you can use these plus and minus buttons. There's also this drop-down menu that you can use to select a preset value. And you'll notice that if you do change the zoom value, so let's say I wanted this to actually be 140%. When I go to the next page, it's going to reset that to whatever the default value was. So now it's back at 170%. If I wanted to change this so that I had a specific value, percentage value for zoom on every page, I can do that from my options menu. So to find your options menu, you'll go to Tools in the top toolbar, select Options, and then this will bring up your options menu. In the General tab, here you can select or input a value for your zoom value. So let's say, for example, instead of 170%, I actually wanted my zoom value to be 200%. So I will input 200 into that box. And then I want to navigate from the General tab to the Image tab here. And under the Extras heading, for default fit, I want to make sure that that's selected as My Zoom. And then here on the bottom in that same heading area, there is an Override Saved Document Page Zoom Level checkbox. I want to make sure that that is selected and checkmarked. After that is done, I'll select Apply and then OK. And then when I navigate back to the first page, my zoom is now at 200%, and it's that value for every single page. All right, so now let's have Kurzweil read to us. So I'll go ahead and scroll down, and then I'll select here at the beginning of the second paragraph. The red cursor is what lets you know where Kurzweil will start reading if you select the play button. So now I'll go ahead and select the play button up here from the top in the middle, and Kurzweil will start reading.
Take a moment to review the preceding 10 questions. Beginning psychology students typically assume that they know the answers to most of them.
So Kurzweil has some nice sounding natural voices, which is a really great feature of it. You'll also notice that as Kurzweil was reading, it highlights each sentence in yellow, and then there is a green highlight that highlights each word as it reads along in that sentence. There are ways that you can change the coloring within your options menu, so you can change those colors if you want. And there are some other visual options that you can change here within the audio options. So I'll go ahead and show you what those audio options are. So I'll select audio options from the top right, and this will open a drop-down menu. Here at the top is the words per minute, so I can speed up or slow down how fast Kurzweil is reading. I can also select the voice. It automatically comes with the voices that are on your device, but there are additional voices that you can download as well from the Kurzweil website. You can also select the reading mode. Right now I have it set to continuous, which is what we recommend most students have, which means that Kurzweil will read from the beginning of the document or wherever you have it start until the very end of the document, unless you select outside of the text or select the pause button. Self-paced is linked to the reading units, so I'll explain the reading units first. The reading units is what is highlighted in yellow on Kurzweil. So right now I have my reading unit selected as sentence. I could also change that to line or paragraph depending on what the preference is. So if I were to select paragraph and change my reading mode to self-paced, that means that Kurzweil would stop reading after every single paragraph, and I would need to select to have it start reading again. Right now, with it being selected on the sentence level, that means that Kurzweil would stop reading after every single sentence, and I would need to tell it to start reading again to have it continue. There's also the option to change the language. There's various languages that you can download from the Kurzweil website, but right now I have English, French, and Spanish on this device. And there are also additional voices that you can download that link up to the languages as well. So you can have documents in other languages read out loud to you, which is really nice. So those are the audio options within Kurzweil. So now I want to show you how you can create an MP3 file of your reading in Kurzweil. This is particularly helpful if you would rather listen to your reading or you don't want to open up Kurzweil and you can listen to it while you drive or just relax and listen to it. So to create an MP3 file, you'll want to navigate to the top toolbar and select File. You'll go to Audio Files and then select Create Audio File. This will pop up with a window that you can then customize to fit whatever speaker you want to have, the reading speed, the page range, as well as the format and file name. And then you can save this to your device and then you can listen to it later. Kurzweil also has a feature so that sometimes when you're reading, there are headers and footers. So I'll show you, for example, on this next page, there's a psychology and scientific thinking header that appears on every single page. If I didn't want to have that read to me on every single page, I can navigate to the Scan tab up here at the top. And from here, I'll want to select header/footer. So I'll select the header/footer editor. And then from here, I'll want to right click. It even gives me the prompt to use right mouse button. So I'll go ahead and right click and then I'll select mark header/footer. And then it will appear with a crosshairs mouse. At this point, I can click and drag across the whole top of the document. And then after I've clicked and dragged, I'll want to select outside of the box, and that will highlight that whole area in green. Once it's green, I'll want to select right click then inside of the green box area, and then I'll want to select apply to all pages. So then when I navigate to the next page, that's all highlighted. And then within your options menu, you'll want to make sure that you have it selected to not read headers and footers. And then once you're all done, you can select this header/footer icon editor. And then that will then be marked for you and it won't read those headers on every single page. There are other things within the Scan tab that you can look at as well, but we don't have the time to get into that for the workshop today. So going back to our Read tab where we can have Kurzweil read to us, there's also note-taking features that you can use as well within this tab. A particularly helpful tool, of course, are highlighters. So over here in the left toolbar is where all of your note-taking tools are. So let's say, for example, for this reading, I wanted to use blue highlighters to highlight my main ideas, I'll use pink to highlight supporting ideas that I've read. And then orange will be other. So that could maybe be important words or just other concepts that I wanted to mark. So I'll use my blue highlighter here first. So I'll go ahead and select and drag. And let's say the first sentence of each paragraph was my main ideas. So I can go ahead and go in and select that first sentence. And then now I'll go ahead and go back to my highlighters and I'll select the pink highlighter. And from here, I'll select the supporting ideas that I read. And then I'll go back and use orange to highlight the other concepts that I wanted to highlight and mark. If, let's say on accident, I marked something that I didn't want to, I can then go to this eraser icon here in my left toolbar, and then I can select and drag, and it will erase that highlight for me. There are other note-taking features as well. For example, the text note, if I select that and click on the document, I can then write a text note. You can customize the font and the color of this within your options menu. There's also a sticky note option, which is really great as well. This is similar to the text note. It just has a background, and you can also change that color within the options menu. And you can move these around wherever you want them to be. A really great option if you don't want to have text on the document itself and taking up space is the footnotes feature. So to use the footnotes feature, I'm also going to show you the definition, the dictionary option as well. So let's say, for example, there was a word that I wasn't sure what it meant exactly, or I just wanted to have more of an explanation of what it is. So let's say, for example, here is the word behavior. I'll go ahead and select right before that word, and I see my red cursor that's flashing, so I know that's where it is. And then I'll select the dictionary icon here from my left toolbar. And this will give me a pop-up window that then has the definition of behavior in there. So now I'll go ahead and highlight and all of this definition, and I will copy that. And then it's still selected before behavior. And now I'll go ahead and use my footnote feature, and I'll paste my definition here. Then to navigate back to my reading, I can then use this X button that's in the left toolbar. If you use the X button that is in this smaller window, that will close out the footnote and delete it. So to make sure I don't delete it, I'll go ahead and use this X icon that's in my left toolbar. And then a number appears to the top left of where that word is. So this is a great option to just take up a little bit less of the space on your document. And then if you double click on the number, it will then read whatever footnote you put in there out loud to you.
1. The manner in which one acts or behaves.
So that's a great option as well. Another great note-taking feature are column notes. So you can use this in tandem with your highlights, which I'll show you right now, or you can create your own without using the highlights feature at all, just by using this open column notes icon in your left toolbar. If I wanted to use my highlights have that auto-populate into a column notes window, I can go to my top toolbar, select File, Extract, and then extract highlights to column notes. Once I select that, it will ask me what highlight colors I want to include and what column those should go into. So I'll make sure blue goes into my number one column because that was my main idea. Pink will go into column 2 since those were my supporting ideas, and orange will go into column 3 because those were my other concepts that I wanted to note. I'll go ahead and select OK, and then I'll open a new notes file and select OK because I don't have an existing notes file that I wanted to add this to. At this point, you'll see that it auto-populated all of my highlights into this great organizational tool. So you can type in additional information in here as well. And then you can reference back to this if you wanted to have an organized way of having all of your notes. I'm going to select the exit button, and I won't save this since I don't need this for later. Another option that you can do is if you go to the top toolbar, select File, Extract, you can extract your notes and highlights. I usually make sure that I have everything check marked in case there's any kind of note features that I used. And then I'll select OK at the bottom of the window. And then at this point, there will be a pop-up window that then has all of your highlights and notes all nice and organized for you in one little window. It also tells you the page numbers, which is really helpful. At this point, you can then copy and paste this into another document. You can also select close and you can save this. You can save it as various files like an RTF or a Word document that you can then use for later. All right, so that is it for the note-taking features of Kurzweil. So now I'll go ahead and show you some of the writing features that Kurzweil has. So I'm going to navigate back to the home page. And then from here, under the Write heading, there are 3 different options for writing. You can create a new draft, which will open a blank word processor. There is Brainstorm, which is what I'll focus on most of our writing portion today. And then there's also an outline feature that you can use as well. So I'll show you the Brainstorm feature, which a brainstorm is just a mind map. And a mind map is a visual way to organize your ideas. It's easier to show you than explain it, so I'll go ahead and bring that up here. There are templates that you can open. So there are compare and contrast templates as well as expository writing templates. You can look at those if you're interested. I'll go ahead and open up a new blank brainstorm. All blank brainstorms start with a circle or an oval at the top that says main idea. So to edit what it says in here, you can click inside of it and then backspace to erase whatever is there. And let's say for my paper, I wanted it to be about dogs. So I'll go ahead and write dogs. And then when I click outside, outside of the oval, there is this crosshair that appears. That's where a shape, if I choose to input a shape, will appear when I select it. Your best friend while you are using the Brainstorm feature is this Brainstorm palette, which is this little window over here on the right. This is what will allow you to add and customize anything that you add to your Brainstorm. So right now I have this crosshairs icon. So to add another oval, I can select this icon here. There's also other shapes you can input as well, and you can also change the colors if you're interested in doing that. So I selected the oval icon, so now there's a new oval that appeared. And let's say dogs is my main idea, and my first, the first thing I want to talk about in my paper are big dogs. So I'll write big dogs here. And then at this point, I'll want to connect my 2 ideas so that it's clear what order they're going in and what the hierarchy is. So I'll first want to select dogs because that is my bigger idea. And then from my Brainstorm palette, I can select the link option. And then an arrow will appear that I can then point to my next idea. And then when I select big dogs, then it creates this arrow that then shows the order that my paper should go in. A quicker way to do that, that whole process, is to use the quick takes option from your Brainstorm palette. So I'll go ahead and select this lightning bolt icon, and then that will input a lightning bolt right next to the word dogs. So let's say I also wanted to talk about medium dogs. So I can just write medium dogs, I'll select my enter key, and then that inputs another, another idea under my main idea. Let's say I also wanted to talk about small dogs. I can do the same thing. I'll write it in right after the lightning bolt and select my enter key. And then I can adjust these however I want so that it is organized in a visual way that makes sense to me. I can then again use this quick takes for big dogs if I wanted to add in supporting details. So I can make this supporting detail 1. I can write in a supporting detail 2, and I'll hit the enter key, and then this will add in extra supporting details that I wanted to write in my paper as well. And then you could do this for all your other aspects that you have in your paper too. Once you're done with making your brainstorm, Kurzweil can then convert your brainstorm into an outline format. So if you go to the document view area in this top toolbar, right now I'm selected on the brainstorm view, but you can then select the outline view, which is just to the right of the brainstorm view icon. And then now this converts your brainstorm into an outline. If you do want to use your outline to type up a paper, I would recommend using the split screen view because this splits your screen in half. So on the left side, you have your outline, and then on the right is a blank word processor that you can then use to write your paper. There is also this draft view, which is just a blank word processor. So let's go back to the split screen view and I'll start writing my paper. So all right, there is a lot of different kinds of dogs. They all have fantastic attributes. Okay, and then once I'm done writing my paper, I can then listen back to it if I wanted. This can be particularly helpful because for some students, myself included, if I write something and I read it, it sounds right because I'm the person who wrote it. But then when I go back and listen to it, I might realize that something didn't sound quite right or it didn't come across the way I was hoping. So then I can go back and edit that after listening to it. So I'll go ahead and select at the beginning of my paper. And then after that, you'll want to select the read play icon at the top, and then it will start reading the paper.
There is a lot of different kinds of dogs. They all have fantastic attributes.
There is also formatting options that you can use within Kurzweil too. We don't usually recommend using those formatting options because if you were to then save this document as a Word document, or if you were to copy and paste this into a Word document or a Google Docs document, it doesn't necessarily transfer all of the formatting that you've done within Kurzweil. So what we recommend is writing the majority of your paper in Kurzweil if you want, and then copy and paste that into a Word document or a Google Docs, and then at that point do your formatting. So that is everything about Kurzweil. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about Google Voice Typing. Google Voice Typing is a speech-to-text tool, which means that it converts everything that's said into written or typed text. This can be particularly helpful if typing is difficult for you, or if you like to speak out loud and talk through your ideas. So this can be a helpful way to get you started with writing a paper, just to get your ideas out, as well as the actual process of writing the paper, because then you can actually say your words out loud and it will type your paper for you. So to access Google Voice Typing, you need to first open a Google Docs document. On a computer, you can only access Google Voice Typing through a Google Docs document. If you did want to use Google Voice Typing on a mobile device, you can download the Google Keyboard or Gboard app from the App Store or from the Google Play Store. That will just add a keyboard to your device that you can then use Google Voice Typing on. Today we're specifically going to talk about the Google Docs version though, so that's what I'll demonstrate. So to access Google Voice Typing from a Google Doc, you'll go to the top toolbar and select Tools. And then from here, you'll select you'll select Voice Typing. At this point, there will be a pop-up window that appears on the left. On this pop-up window, there is a drop-down menu that has the languages that you can select from. So if you spoke a different language, you could use that for Google Voice Typing. And to have it start picking up everything you're saying and converting that into typed text, you'll select the microphone icon. Once I have the microphone activated, it will turn red, which means that now it is picking up everything I'm saying and will convert that into typed text. One thing you'll notice is that it does not include punctuation. So it doesn't show any of my pausing or where a period might appear. But if I say period, it actually does appear with a period. There are many different Google Voice commands, including punctuation, that you can include just by saying them out loud. There is a whole web page that has all of those voice commands listed for you, which includes, of course, punctuation, but also formatting and navigation as well. So you can check that out if you're interested. In general, you'll notice also that Google Voice Typing is pretty accurate. It at first might look like it's typing something different that is from what you said, but it kind of goes through and corrects that as it reads. But you'll notice right here, it wrote the word guerra, and that is not something I know I said. I'll go ahead and stop Google Voice Typing right now by selecting that microphone icon on the left. So once it is done, once you're done using Google Voice Typing, you'll want to go through and edit everything that has been typed, specifically because of errors like guerra. So you can go through and fix anything that might not look correct, and also include punctuation if you did not say the punctuation out loud while it was typing. You can also copy and paste what you've typed with Google Voice Typing into Kurzweil to listen back to everything that's been typed to help you catch any errors that might be in the document that you spoke out loud. But this is a very helpful tool for some students, so that's why we wanted to introduce it to you today. So that is all that we have for our reading and writing workshop for today. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions about any of the technology, apps, or software we talked about, please come in during our drop-in hours. You can also contact us via email at adaptivetech@pdx.edu. Thank you and have a great day.